Welcome to the Overland Roundtable. Thanks for coming back. I know it's been a very long time since the last time that we met, but we've got some new guest panelists I'm really excited to introduce. We've got Scott Brady. How you doing tonight, Scott?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be here.
Thanks. We also have Mario Donovan. How you doing today, Mario?
I'm doing great. Beautiful day here in Prescott.
Excellent. And Patrick Metzker. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, and we'll go through again and allow you guys to give yourself a little more introduction, some of your background and what you bring to things. And Aaron, how are you doing? Oh, I think you got yourself muted still.
Is that it?
Yep, now you're on.
All right, I'm doing good. Sorry about that.
Perfect. All right, and of the usual suspects, we have Alex. How you doing today?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah,
bright
just
and early.
Waking up. Yeah.
And
nice cool morning.
Yeah, that's good. It's already getting hot here in the Mojave. And Jason, how you doing?
I'm good here. We're doing great. It's Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. Absolutely.
Whatever the weekend's going to look like for everybody. So the topic we're going to be talking about on this session is how has overlanding changed over the last couple years and kind of what we think the future is going to look like, kind of a generic topic, and talking COVID-19 impacts from our localities and what we're seeing in terms of the overlanders, the folks that I consider to be the true overlanders that are really traveling full-time, not just weekend warrior types. So, we'll go ahead and start off with expanding the introductions here. We'll go back to Scott. You want to fill us in with some of your background, if somebody doesn't already know?
I run a print magazine called Overland Journal and a website called Expedition Portal. As a traveler, I've circumnavigated the planet 3 times and crossed all 7 continents.
That's legit credibility. And I think a lot of people attach your name to the definition of overlanding. So thanks for coming on. Really excited to get your perspective here.
Honored to be here.
All right. And Mario, what's your background?
Hey, I'm the owner of AT Overland, and we've been in the overland business before overlanding had a name. Thanks, Scott. And we started Adventure Trailers, Inc. in 2002 and have been sort of at the forefront of this. I grew up in East Africa, so overlanding as it is was just how we got around. And so we build a lot of fun products here in Prescott.
Outstanding. All right. Next up, Patrick. A little background here.
Yeah, so Patrick Metzker from Peach State Overland here in the Southeast. We've been together since about 2014, so relatively new, I think, compared to some of the old-timers we have here on the call today. But, again, I think what we enjoy doing is kind of getting out, traveling, filming what we do. We got 2 videographers in the group, and then we love doing kind of what I call micro expeditions with the locals around here. So we'll do 3 and 4 day weekends and just do kind of like excursion type planning with the locals.
Sounds good. All right. Aaron, next up.
Hey, I own a business in Springfield, Missouri called Artemis Overland Hardware. We sell about anything overland. We started about 3 years ago, and we can't control our growth right now. I also do a lot of getting out in the field and traveling, but I haven't circumferenced the world yet.
Not yet. Good to have goals, though. Take your time getting there. All right, Alex. I think you're a well-known name here, but we'll do the full introductions. I guess I'll have to do myself last.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm Alex. I've been running Intense blog, YouTube channel for about 6 years now, since 2014, and before that, like a lot of Australian kids, just grew up camping around the country. It definitely wasn't called overlanding then. It was just camping, except in a car. And, I'm based in Perth, Western Australia, so pretty isolated over here. Lots of space to explore.
Outstanding. All right, and Jason.
How's it going, guys? Jason Specht with Mountain State Overland. We've been filming adventures out of our trucks here for about 7 or 8 years exploring the East Coast and some places out west briefly. We do tours in the Mountain State of West Virginia, and we're launching a festival here this year. But the drive is to continue to promote that adventure lifestyle and getting people outside and supporting opportunities with legislature in our local states to get new roads open and keep gates open as well.
Outstanding. And I am Dan Cole, moderator for the Overland Roundtable and also the host of the 4x4 podcast, which covers all things off-roading, to include two wheels, even though it is the 4x4 podcast. Just everything outdoors. Active duty Army, Eagle Scout. I've been doing stuff on the outside since I could walk. So that's kind of where we're at. So we'll circle back around and open up with Scott on kind of some of the, seeing as how, like I said, everybody generally attests the overlanding term to your name. You kind of coined it, and it's boomed since then. So kind of what do you think, how has things changed?
Well, first, I thank you for the compliments, but I think I may have been the first to leverage it as a business, but it's been around. That term has been around for a long time, and come before.
Hey, Scott, you fell off.
What a time to drop out.
Well, we'll just go ahead and transition over to Mario, seeing as how you're making a business out of this as well. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Where are we going with overlanding? We'll come back to Scott.
It's pretty interesting. Scott was sort of alluding to that. This has been around for a while, but a lot of us who have been doing this kind of travel ever since we can remember, we were sort of the outliers and on the fringe of outdoor activity. And what Scott effectively did.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm back. It just completely shut down the whole screen. So
well, it's good to know Murphy's Law exists everywhere.
Yeah, so maybe I can start from the beginning and get it pinned back together. But
sure. Well, go for it.
Well, thank you for the compliments on that. Obviously, the term overland has been around for a long time, and I feel very grateful to have followed in the footsteps of some incredible travelers like Gary and Monica Westcott, Chris Scott, Tom Shepard, and others that I really drew so much inspiration from. The term overlanding, I think it carries weight, and I would love to see it continue to carry at least some definitive components to it, not just be descriptive. And I think that we do that by just being clear in what it is that we do. So if we're going out camping, we just say, I'm going camping. If I'm going four-wheeling for the day, we just say I'm going four-wheeling for the day. If I'm going someplace remote, or if I'm experiencing a new culture or a new location, then maybe I do want to call that overlanding. And the last thing that I ever want to do is say that someone else's definition of overlanding is wrong, because that's not the position I want to be in. I want to just express that I think if we use things or terms that are definitive, then it ends up being more accurate. We can more accurately describe what we're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of human nature to want to put everything in categories, and if it doesn't fit neatly in some bin, then it gets confusing to people. So,
yeah, and I think that's obviously what we've seen change, or what I've seen change most. When I first started doing this, my goal was to, as quickly as possible, gain as much experience internationally as possible. And what we see now is larger audiences that are served by folks that are not traveling internationally. And I think that both have their place. I just think that my particular emphasis has always been on big continental overland trips.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, Mario, want to pick back up where you left off?
Yeah, if I can even remember. Well, I think what's happening right now in the States, as I was saying earlier, overlanders, as if you take that terminology, we've always been involved in this type of travel, but we didn't actually have a name, and we were kind of outliers and on the fringe of travel. And what Scott effectively did with the Expedition Portal was create, through the technology of the internet, this virtual international tribe where all of a sudden those of us who are aficionados of this type of travel had a place to gather. It's our powwow, but it happens in the virtual world of the internet, which is great. And I think that's what really led to the expansion of people becoming aware of this type of travel. And some people have maybe taken it and taken camping and calling it overlanding, when Scott's point is spot on in that, call it what it is. But if overlanding were this overarching thing that people are categorizing camping and, international travel under, then, well, so be it. But I think it's something that has grown in popularity because there's an awareness. And while most of the clients we serve are primarily campers, we're building trucks for people who are going out with their limited time of, a 3-day weekend, or they might take off a couple of weeks a year and they're going to do the Trans-America Trail or some DDR route. They're adventurers. And regardless, adventure is sort of this broad term, and you can't take away the sense of adventure from anybody, whether it's just 2 days in the woods or it's 2 months, across a continent.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, like a lot of people, they'll prepare for that 2-day weekend, go to a trip. But if they have not prepared, that 2-day weekend trip can quickly turn into something that they did not intend.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, I always like to say it's not an adventure until something goes wrong. Preferably you don't want it to go wrong, but it does make for a good story when it does.
No, it's fun when serendipity hits us upside the head. So.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, you mentioned earlier that you were kind of newer back in 2014, but that's still plenty of time in this game. What kind of things are you seeing changed in the last couple years?
Yeah, so we've actually been seeing a lot of, I guess let me go back a little bit. Our target market, or the people that we really like to interact with, are kind of new to the industry. We have been doing a lot of 2 and 3 and 4-day weekend sort of trips here in the South. We've noticed a lot of interest in that, and I would actually say that that's kind of like a stepping stone to a longer-term excursion or overlanding trip. And we're kind of gradually exposing the locals down here to that sort of an activity before they make a long trip across the United States to go to Moab or to go somewhere out west where they can easily get lost for an entire month in an activity. So we've been seeing a lot of growth here, I think, in the South, and it's been. You can see it in the trends in the market. So, for example, Tesla trucks got their newest truck comes with the overlanding or the tent setup on the back. The Rivian, for example, comes with that pull-out fridge. So a lot of people, a lot of vendors are looking to market to this new group of individuals that really kind of likes to go out and be adventurous. And with the continued growth of YouTube and the ease of access for anybody to kind of join and start documenting their trip, I think we're continuing to see growth here in the United States for these sorts of activities. Not necessarily in the most traditional sense. When you think overlanding, you may think 3, 4, 5 week trips, maybe even months, doing some long-term travel. In our geographical region, we don't have that much isolation. So I think, again, it's a stepping stone. People are kind of getting excited about the hobby. We do a lot of training here. And we're kind of on the fringe of overlanding, right? So we do excursion planning. So we take people out rappelling, shooting, things like that too, not just the travel and the camping aspects.
Yeah, that's really kind of where a lot of people land is the vehicle is just the tool that gets them to whatever the other adventure is. And, everything chaos ensues between, and that's where you have a good time.
Oh yeah, and we've had a few trips that where we've hosted a lot of people. I mean, when I say a lot, it may be 20 or 30 different people, maybe 10 or 15 trucks, and something will go wrong. To kind of what you were saying earlier, and when those things go wrong, that's what creates the memories. We had every year we do actually a trip for an ALS fundraiser in August or September, and the one we had last year. We got on this one section of road and it was just like mud everywhere. And I kid you not, as soon as we had that experience, like every single truck except for 2 in our group had to be winched out. Once we had that experience, they were talking for days. And then they were talking on our Facebook group for days about how fun this was. So for us, it was a big stress. Like, oh my God, we've got all these people down this back road and it just poured down rain and this Georgia clay is just getting everywhere. And, they came out of it with the coolest experience in their minds. And so, it's just getting people started and getting people new into the industry, excited about what they could be doing. And then they step up and they do bigger and longer term trips.
Sure. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that cannot be fabricated. You could not fake an adventure like that to drive home some of those points. That's excellent points. All right, Aaron, kind of what are you seeing here for the past, where we're at, and what's going forward?
Yeah, I'm in Springfield, Missouri. It's kind of center of the United States, and it's just really broke loose here. It's amazing how people are just kind of. I get calls every day like, I'm just getting into this, and I don't really know where it is anywhere else, but I kind of am one of the only. There's several here, but there's concentrate more on camping and some 4-wheel drive parts, and it seems like it just really booming here. People are getting excited. We have where I'm at. We have a lot of national forests, and people. They're getting full. I went out a couple weeks ago to one that's about half an hour from my house. I pull in there and there was 40 trucks. I mean, it was right when the lockdown started. There's probably 40 trucks in there with trailers with guys and razors, but that's where we always go and overland or do trail runs and camp and stuff. So just the whole market is just kind of broke open here, and it's just on a growth trajectory.
Yeah, well, I kind of think as evidence of that, you just had the expo there, which I think showed a lot of mainstream type of tendencies with a heavy overland type flavor.
Yeah, that was a real huge success. We had people there from I think there was 20 states of people that came, about 5,000 attendants. And, there wasn't a lot of vendors there. I bet there was probably 50 vendors, and there's some overlap, but a lot of people came out for that. And the Midwest has been kind of starting for this. So we have a lot of, clear streams for floating and a lot of backpack trails. And now people are like, oh, I got a 4-wheel drive. Let's get going. So, I use the word overland loosely, but that's what it's named now. So we're going for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Includes a lot of people that might have otherwise steered away. So far we've had everybody's been North American based. So Alex, how are things changing in Australia where, just touring has its roots for the most part, or in a lot of ways?
Yeah, well, I feel like touring is the term that really hung around here for a lot longer before the word overlanding came along. And down in Australia, we obviously have your four-wheel drives or four-wheel driving, and then four-wheel drive touring, which might loosely correlate to your overlanding. So touring might be your 2 to 4 week trip, or even touring around the whole country for a year. And it's really exploded a lot more into rough and tumble stuff, I see. So you used to have two separate kind of categories. You'd have your four-wheel driving and you'd have your touring. And then people started making like tough touring rigs. So instead of having your 31, 33-inch tyres and a modest 2-inch lift, they'd start pushing into 4-inch lift and 35s and sort of calling it a tough tourer, where they can go around and do the tough tracks but then do the longer distance stuff as well. So I'm starting to see a lot more of a blend into mixing the rough and tumble with on top of your longer drives. And I don't think it's such a good thing, because there's a few people that get out there and carve up these remote locations, drive a lot harder than they should be, go out there and flog these areas for the fun of pushing the vehicle, you know. And there's actually an Instagram page. I don't know if any of you follow him. He's called Cowboy Tuned down here, and he just completely takes the mick out of all this sort of behaviour, and people coming on board as content creators, and just completely takes the mick out of what people say and all the trends. So if you get on there and have a look at them, it's just some of the stuff he picks on. That is so true. But,
you'll have to send me a link to that one. I have not seen that one before, so I'm looking forward to it. But, it's interesting, the idea of, one audience kind of cross-pollinating over to another segment of the audience and not fully understanding what it is that they're getting into. Somebody who is more into off-roading, now they want to say they're an overlander, but they're not kind of abiding by the same community practices or the things that the overland category kind of adheres to. That's an interesting idea.
Yes. I think that there needs to be way more promotion on the whole tread lightly thing, because that is just not coming across well enough here. We've just got people will buy a 79 series cruiser, just throw that on the mortgage, throw an extra $50,000, $80,000 on it, tune it up, build it into this big tough touring thing, and then go around and make a load of noise, fling a load of mud, and carve up some sand for a couple of views on the tube. So that's what I've seen explode the most in the last 2 years. There's still a lot of the good stuff, the more responsible stuff under there. But unfortunately, one person gets out there and gets a lot of views off doing something irresponsible that looks cool. And I'm seeing, unfortunately, a fair bit of that.
Yeah, well, and that's why I like having this group here together, because, I see the people here in front of me virtually are kind of the stewards of this activity and help encourage the self-policing of our community to kind of avoid that kind of behavior. That's really the only way we're going to achieve any success.
Yeah, but I definitely don't see overland dying off or going anywhere down in Australia anytime soon, especially because we've just got so much vast country, so much to explore. You've got to travel long distances to get anywhere. Like, it's a 2-day drive just to get out of my state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Jason, another guy who I consider to be one of the stewards of the activity, doing lots of good stuff down there in Virginia.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hungry now after watching Mario eat his dinner there. But
actually lunch, so
it looks pretty
late I am today.
It looks pretty tasty. Yeah, I think generally my answer is it's a little different now. Of course, we haven't been doing, our filming and multi, day trips or 2-week trips and stuff like that for, more than 7 or 8 years. But when we were in high school, we'd go camping. Like we'd drive the trucks out in the woods and we'd go drive the trails and we'd go camping. And we'd come back and talk about it for days and go to school and class. And then all of us went our separate directions. And then kind of got caught up in different activities and stuff. And when I kind of first really connected with overlanding was with Ewan and Charlie in the Long Way series. When I was living down in Atlanta near where Patrick lives now. And I bought a bike and put some panniers on the side of it and spent weekends kind of exploring on my own and just staying away as long as I could and finding all of these cool roads to explore in this state or the next. And then we discovered, what overlanding was. And that's when we were introduced to Expedition Portal and some other forums and stuff like that, kind of drove the interest. Expedition Overland was one of the first videos that we ever watched on YouTube, and they were a major influence on us to try to promote something that people could get into and to promote economic growth in some of these very rural locales in West Virginia or Virginia locally here. And when we first started doing it, it was, Instagram was new and people were collaborating and people were working together and, they were connecting companies and, of course, innovation right now is just through the roof in this industry, which is amazing to watch. But what I've seen, and I would probably talk on the most through this question, is there was so much collaboration and so much teamwork and so much community support driving, overlanding or, adventure travel, as some may call it. That was really where our passion was to motivate these companies to work together, and to make those connections. And then we kind of went our own path and more people started coming and doing it and self-documenting, which is great. And we were just going epic. Like, how can we be going longer? How can we go farther? Let's go somewhere new. And we experimented with, doing a toured or a guided trip. And we had some very specific goals in mind where we got to keep it small to preserve the intimacy of the adventure. So that we could get to know each other just like we were a team. So it wasn't a gaggle of people. It was a small communal network of people that could be together, because I think it's really important that we try to drive back to that, making the connection, making sure that people have that same experience as they're coming into overlanding. And I know we can't do that for everybody, but I want people to have that experience that we had when we first discovered, mountains, or not Mountain State, but when we first discovered Expedition Overland, we first discovered Expedition Portal. We want to get people excited about it. And it's great people going out and buying a bunch of stuff for their truck, but you guys see it all the time. People are saying, where do I go and how do I do it? They're going out and they're buying their stuff and they want to go their own path. But I think I appreciate the term steward. I don't know if that really applies to us, but we want to preserve that experience and we want to make it good, because I basically see overlanding now versus overlanding when we first started doing it as people are quickly trying to go their own paths and their own routes, which is just society, I guess. But I like working together with people. And I like people having a good experience and, building friends out of this whole thing. I think that's where it was when we started, and I'd like to see it go that way, but it's hard to maintain that.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea of the innovation that you mentioned, and that's kind of where I want to go with this next part of the discussion is, necessity is the mother of invention, but right now with the COVID-19 lockdown, the world has come to a stop. There's a lot of innovation coming just out of the idle hands, people sitting at home and looking at how they can do things better. The problem is, I think, is that when people, like you mentioned, are just trying to like purchase everything, like a catalog just barfed all over somebody's truck, and now they're an overlander. Like that's not necessarily how things work. You need to get out and try using some stuff and find out what is necessary, what is not necessary. And, I think right now the trend is to overpack. Everybody wants the next new gadget and slap it on there. And that's so hard. Next thing you know, they've got a driveway full of projects and they've never driven a mile to do anything interesting. If I can
interject one more thing here too, along those same lines, is that as we, especially now, going into our next two topics, I guess, but our society is quickly moving into digital connection, virtual experiences, and virtual purchases, online retail. Giving somebody a real firsthand experience doing it for the first time is becoming extremely valuable to these people, because then they know. I mean, yes, sure, some people are going to come on trips and they're going to be totally kitted out, but you're going to have a stock truck or a stock Subaru sometimes, and because people want to know what it's like. And I think that more people ought to offer those opportunities, just like rafting, right? So just like you don't just go out and buy a raft, you go and do it several times before you decide that, hey, this is something I want to do. So I think that I think we all want a personal experience in the end.
Yeah, and on that topic, just like you said, a lot of people are wanting I get this question every day. They buy a tent and then they're like, what else do I need? And they start naming all this stuff off. And I'm like, buy the tent, make sure you have something to cook with, go out there, and then you'll figure out what you need. They want to buy everything right off the top. And I tell them every time, just wait, see what you need out there, because you don't really need that much stuff to go out for the weekend or have a good time.
Can I just chip in with one really funny piece of gear that I find people are putting on their vehicles way over the top, is going all out with a Red Arc battery system, lithium batteries, $2,000 on lithium batteries, a $3,000 top-of-the-line setup, and they go for one-night weekend trips and nothing but. All the time. Yeah, look at this, all these fancy remote electrics and massive batteries I can run for 5 days, but no, I've only been out for weekenders for the last 2 years.
Our joke around here is that the high lift jack is the equivalent of truck nuts.
Because it just hangs there on the back, right?
It just hangs there. It rusts. It never gets used. People are terrified of them.
The old hijack.
Oh.
Yeah. Nine times, I'd say 99 times out of 100, we don't even use them.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is Scott. I've got just a quick thought on this exact topic. Is in my experience, if someone has the resources to build their vehicle up and they want to add all the really high quality parts, I think that's fine. Where I think it's unfortunate is if someone doesn't have the resources and they spend all of the money on the vehicle and then they don't have any money left to actually have experiences. So
that's a tragedy.
If we put the emphasis on having experiences with our family, think about the places that we can go with our partner, or maybe we take an elderly parent along with us and we have those memories and those experiences. If we make that the priority, and I learned this myself when I drove the Silk Road in a Suzuki Jimny, which is just like a Samurai, and it essentially had no modifications. So when I got done with that trip, I recognized that all of this stuff it's actually very cool. It's really fun to use and it's fun to learn about, and it can enhance our experience, but the experience needs to be the cornerstone of what we're doing. So For those that are listening, if you take your budget for the year for travel and you put the majority of that budget towards the experiences, I think you'll be a lot happier at the end of it.
Oh yeah,
Well said.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And when I was up in Alaska, I had some family come and visit from Chicago area. Never really done much outdoor stuff at all, and we, jumped right in. We've got room with additional tents, and obviously the camp kitchen, the chuck box can cook for a lot more people. And we did a 1.5 week loop around Alaska. And this was a loop that we've done a number of times. It was not that exotic experience for us, but sharing that with some family changed their life. Absolutely changed their life.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone home,
Awesome.
They've purchased camping equipment, and they've stuffed it in the back of their minivan, and they're going camping. Whether or not they call it overlanding, doesn't matter. It was a life-changing experience for them. And it was not spent, the money was not spent on the gear. It was just on getting them there and showing them how to get around. So that's one of the things that I encourage people to do. Just share it with other people. And that's going to be what shapes overlanding going forward.
Yeah, I would agree, and I hope that that's the trend. I mean, we've talked about the trend, and as long as people are focused on the travel, I think that's an upside.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of travel, how about this COVID-19 lockdown business? This is kind of putting a cramp in our style here. The one thing that we want to do is go travel and experience things, and instead we're clicking through YouTube channels, subscribing to new podcasts, things like that. So kind of want to get everybody's take on this. So Scott, I think you guys have talked about it over on the Overland Journal podcast a little bit, maybe in another podcast I was listening to. But what are you seeing in terms of the travelers that are out there for longer duration, and how is the lockdown kind of affecting them? And if, I guess, how's it going to affect everything going forward too?
Well, it's interesting. I was in Africa when this whole thing kicked off, and I nearly got stranded in southern Africa. I was actually on my seventh travel itinerary by the time it actually got me out of South Africa. So I was experiencing it firsthand, and a lot of travelers were there and worried about getting home and cutting their trips short. I had originally planned on driving all the way up through Zambia and into Kenya, and I had to cancel that trip. So I was experiencing it firsthand. It was interesting going into Swaziland and having them ask about if I had any symptoms. They were taking it as serious as they could. But we definitely know of several travelers. I mean, many of us know Graham Bell and his family. They're stuck in southern Africa. They've not been able to start their Africa journey. We know of a bunch of overlanders in Argentina that were actually getting run out of small towns because the towns were fearful that they had the virus. So we're definitely seeing travelers around the world being affected by this.
Yeah, I imagine that's the case for everybody that's on those longer trips. But, as we start hearing discussions about states kind of reopening business, I don't think we're going to come out of this and see the same world that we went in. And I'm curious how this is going to affect longer travel and travel in general now that there's a overabundance of precautions.
I had a customer last week buy some kit from me, and he said he traveled with his family 4 times a year. They got on a plane or a jet, and they went somewhere 4 times a year. And he said, we're done with that. We're buying a tent. We're going to travel all the places we go to, but we're going to drive and camp in a tent. So, I think for this industry, it's kind of not shutting us down. It's kind of opening more doors. I've seen a lot more people wanting to get out because in Missouri and Arkansas, probably some other Midwestern states, the national forests are still open. Some of the campgrounds are not open, but the national forests are open. And I've seen a lot of people, and I also see a lot of people that I sell to, they're using it as an excuse not to get out, but I have some people I sell to that they're out every weekend and sometimes during the week because they have lots of time on their hands.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping for, but the work from home business didn't shake out that way. Well, Patrick, how about you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, for us, I think being really close to Metro Atlanta area, there's obviously a big emphasis on staying home and staying out of the local stores. Our governor's in the process of reopening some things now, which he's getting a lot of flack for. But in general, I think what you're going to see is a lot of pent-up demand for people to not only be camping, but for merch and everything to kind of get back outdoors. I think with the volume of time that we've recently spent indoors, there's going to be an appetite more specifically for spending more time outdoors, whether it's canoeing, whether it's shooting, whether it's camping, like all of the outdoor activities, I think are going to see somewhat of a boom over this summer. I think campgrounds are going to be sold out for the next 6 months to a year. In a lot of cases, I know some of the ones locally here are always booked. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for us. And another thing too, I think we are seeing is a lot of the police officers locally around here are seeing like more speeding tickets just because there's less traffic on the road. And so, you know, we're questioning kind of what are the trail systems going to look like with fewer people on them. Is it going to be a positive impact or is it going to be a negative impact because nobody's out there kind of consistently watching them? So I think it could honestly go either way. We have a big struggle here with our trail systems now. We're doing a lot of things with the locals to try to get trails opened up, but we're kind of struggling because they're not really allowing us to help with any sort of recovery efforts or, you know, making the trails better, improving. The only thing we can do is pick up trash. And so, you know, I'm hoping that this change will have a positive impact on the trail systems and on our outdoor wilderness area. But again, with just pent up demand, I'm expecting that later this summer and this fall, we're just going to see a ton of people on the trails and in the woods.
Yeah, this is Scott. Just a quick little anecdote. We've seen a significant jump in traffic to all of our sites. So over 30% increase in traffic to Expedition Portal alone, and Overland Journal subscriptions are growing as well. So I think there is a lot of interest in this subject right now.
Is that year to date, Scott, or is that just like in the last 4 weeks?
It's comparing the last 4 weeks to the same period last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be at probably 1.7, 1.8 million readers for the month.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I think that really drives home the point that there is a pent-up demand. So I think the trails are going to be, you know, whether it's an off-roading trail or what you're calling an overlanding trail, it's going to be jam-packed full of people. I know I've heard reports of people trying to sneak out and hit some of the just forest roads and fire roads here in San Bernardino County, and the BLM officers are in their favorite hiding spot with binoculars, and they're tagging people with some pretty heavy fines. So I imagine that's just going to skyrocket once California opens up for business again.
But definitely in the more highly populated states, I can see that. I mean, where we are in Arizona and, you know, proximity to southern Utah, and there's still a lot of places where you can hide and just not be seen. It's way too much territory for those guys to cover. And we're still seeing, like on our end, we're still very busy. You know, we've got 16 weeks of work in process here to deliver to customers, and we still have people calling. Where we have seen a drop off in business is where it's other products that we resell in the supply chain is all jacked up and we can't get the product. Like, for example, Florida Campers is shut down and has been shut down for 5 weeks now. We're a dealer for them. Well, we've got, you know, we've got like 16, 17 campers on back order with them that some of them should have been delivered already. And so that's where we've seen our revenue drop, but not in our own product. So people are still interested. They're planning to go out whenever they can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're finding the same thing here. We're finding the same thing here. Our manufacturers, our vendors are all backed up, shipping stuff in from China, South Africa, Australia. Everything's been stopped for 3 weeks to a month, so we're 3 weeks to a month behind. I have back orders of tents, many rooftop tents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember seeing some posts from Brian down in Goose Gear, just down the road from me, and I think he anticipated what was going to be happening, so they beefed up their stock of wood so that they can continue to produce as much as possible as things were starting to close down, and that's the hard part. Not all the manufacturers are able to keep up and manage their supply chain that way, but it has been a good thing for me. Anecdotally, I've been buying little pieces to repair all the projects on my Jeep that, always break down, that have been lingering there that I haven't gotten after. Now I've got the time to actually work on it, and I suspect that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the case for me. I've spent more money on the vehicle in the last month than I have in more than a year, I reckon.
Yeah. Yep.
All my Land Rover parts come out of New York, so it's real hard to get those.
I'd like to comment back on what Patrick was talking about, and kind of what we're all talking about here. I just yesterday I shared an email with my state senator Mark Maynard here in West Virginia, who's a champion for opening roads and keeping access and not restricting access to trails and opening gates here in West Virginia. And he asked for some feedback. And so I found this article 2 days ago on Forbes magazine talking, and I think it was just published just 3 days ago, but the future of travel after COVID-19. And I quote, people will be seeking outdoor open air attractions and destinations. Outdoor trails, water activities, and camping will be very popular. We also predict that some form of social distancing will remain for the foreseeable future, which means people will be traveling in smaller groups and visiting off the beaten path destinations. So I think we're all right on the same point. And for Forbes to, be releasing, content like that, suggesting that's what people are going to do and people will respond to, I think we're right on. We're right on the money.
Right. Yeah. Who in their right mind would be going to Disneyland today?
Yeah.
Jason, you should know I write for Forbes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, that article stopped just short of saying everybody's going to turn into an overlander. Like,
exactly.
It was one sentence away.
Have any of you guys seen sort of banding together, pulling together of community things online? Community camping or overlanding online, aside from obviously the 30% of extra website hits?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion on it there, but like I have the benefit, for those who don't know, I live here on the Fort Irwin cul-de-sac, way out in the middle of nowhere, where we've got, federal training area, but it's only accessible to the active duty service members that are here. And so we've opened up this training area that was normally closed because, there's a lot of training happening out there, shooting live rounds, but that's not happening. And the commanding general has afforded us the opportunity to go to use that as a recreation area. And
that's nice.
Yeah. And so within this small community, there was over 10% of the population was out in the training area participating in some sort of recreation activity. And really the only thing you're doing out there is off-roading, whether it's a motorcycle, a four-wheel drive, a Jeep, ATV, side-by-side, because that's the only thing that's going to survive this area. Like, these roads are out here destroying Humvees and LMTVs and tanks on a daily basis. And so that's the only thing that's going to be surviving out there. And so that just shows everybody is now strong desire to do these kinds of activities. And it's just going to get fueled the longer this goes on. And when we come out of it, it's just going to continue.
Well, I've seen
some of the best wild pig hunting in California there in Fort Irwin.
That's a little farther north. I promise there are no pigs here. I've looked.
Okay, all right.
We've seen so many people just, I'm in a lot of camping and off-roading, overlanding groups on Facebook, and so many people just dead keen to get out. One of my mates started up a Facebook group for a backyard camp out, and started off with about 300 members, and it's up to about 3,500 now.
Oh, that's clever.
Wow.
It was just supposed to be this one weekend, and a lot of people have some pretty good couple of acre backyards around here. So this first weekend, everyone got out in the backyard. We've got Wi-Fi signal and everything, and my mate actually organised live Facebook events that went for about 8 or 9 hours all through the afternoon into the night. Included things like me doing a bit of a cooking demo for a half hour, someone doing a guided walk of their local town, heaps of musicians doing free gigs through this live thing. And started as one weekend, and then they did it the next weekend, and then another one this weekend, which was Anzac themed. So we had people on singing Anzac themed songs. I got on there and did a piece talking about this old abandoned airbase that you can go and travel to. It's about a 4-day adventure from my place out into this secret World War II airbase, and showed a bunch of video I took there and read from a book just talking about the stories of the people that fought there. So, yeah, everyone's been pulling together and doing these backyard campouts and sharing their experiences through this group.
That's a phenomenal idea. Did you record that? Is that on YouTube somewhere?
I didn't record it, but I can send you the link to the group, and all the live stuff will be
I'd like to see
posted
that.
up there.
I know, my wife and I, we were sitting outside in the backyard, actually around the campfire, which is, since it's California flavor campfire, it's propane. But we realized within a week and a half, we burned through that entire tank of just sitting around the campfire in the mornings. Like, I'd grab a coffee, go sit outside. At nighttime, we're sitting out there. And, we're FaceTiming with family and friends and everything, having that virtual camping experience right in the backyard. And
it's very interesting to see how people have adapted and connected and managed to bring what's traditionally an outdoors activity back home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, they have $20,000 worth of tent or overland equipment. They need to set out.
Yes, use this for the
You can't use the sliders, but you can use the tent.
It's been pretty interesting here in West Virginia. So our national forests are still open. Campgrounds, public campgrounds are closed. Dispersed camping is still permitted. The rivers are open. The river accesses are open. And so you can still do that and get out there. So, people are social distance fishing just as they did before COVID-19. People are still floating the rivers. And very few people are camping because they don't know how to disperse camp. And we're pretty fortunate to be really close to, some of these opportunities, but, weather here in the spring is extremely wet for us this year. We've, normally we'd be building a vehicle right now with, four-wheel drive at a shop, but, I'm doing it here in the garage. So it's been a kind of fun adjustment to kind of bring it back to how we used to do it, when we first started. And, I've got half the equipment here and half the equipment up in New Jersey, and I'm not going to New Jersey anytime soon. It's been kind of fun because, I can have my son here help me, and I'm back to self-documenting like we used to do a long time ago. And, the families are benefiting from this, the most, and being, with each other and thinking through and planning, what are you going to do when this is over? Schools are closed, parents are homeschooling. I mean, it's just been wild, absolutely wild. And, talk to people up in Boston, of course, talk to people up in New Jersey. Our friend Gabby is down in Texas, so, and we've got Australia, we've got Georgia, we've got Missouri, we got you guys, it's really cool to connect with people and to purpose, these video chats and podcasts. I mean, podcasts were, I wouldn't say it was a dying breed because podcasts had always been around, but the uptick of podcast opportunities and podcast contents has just been booming right now. So it's just really great if you can generate content right now, because people are hungry. People are tired of watching what's on TV. So I look at it as a lot of positives from this, is bringing us back together as a society and focusing on what's important. As we work through this.
Yeah, I see that.
I really like the idea of setting a new baseline for the society as we kind of come out and like, this is the new normal.
Yeah.
Let's maintain this here for a little bit and cut back on the crazy.
Yeah.
So, well, let's go ahead and kind of wrap this up and leave more for the next session. But I want to give everybody a chance to kind of go through again and kind of redirect. If somebody wants to learn more about your adventures, Scott, where would you have them go to learn more about, Overland Journal, all of the places?
Well, we primarily service our readers through the print magazine Overland Journal, and that's available on overlandjournal.com. And then we have Expedition Portal, which is our community forum, and our editorial site. We have about 4,000 articles on that site. And then late last year, we started the Overland Journal podcast as well.
Absolutely love the podcast, and I cannot allow myself to go to Expedition Portal after 5 o'clock in the evening. It's a bottomless pit. All right, Mario, where should somebody go to follow up with your adventures?
Well, the best place to kind of stay in touch with what we're doing, we've been pretty active daily on Instagram. So our AT Overland on Instagram is got a lot of stuff going on. We're also planning some live events coming up in the next couple of weeks where people get an opportunity to get to know our staff and ask us questions and just get to know who we are, not necessarily what we sell, but, what do we like to eat? Where do we like to go? And things like that, so that there's a little bit more of a connection with the people who make stuff here and just get to know us.
Awesome. Thanks again, Mario, for coming on. Patrick.
Oh, you bet.
Patrick, where did you have somebody go to follow your adventures?
Yeah, so we've got 3 places. We're on Facebook. We have a big following on Facebook. That's kind of where we have the most engagement. We've got Peach State Overland's community group. We've got an Instagram channel where we just kind of share pictures and activities that we do. When we're not in the COVID-19 crisis, we have a monthly Overland social event that we do. So first Thursday of every month, we're meeting in either Kennesaw or Ackworth somewhere and just getting together with locals to kind of chat and catch up. And then our website, so peachstateoverland.com, go there if you want more information about the activities that we plan, where we're going to be, and then if you want to join any of our excursions.
Outstanding. All right, Aaron, where's somebody go keep up with you and Artemis Overland?
Well, the first place is our website, artemisoverland.com. That has all our information on there. My phone number's on there. My email address is on there. So if you need any products or anything, you just call and we'll talk about it. I don't like we do a lot of business on the website. We're on Instagram, Artemis Overland, Facebook, Artemis Overland, and I have a YouTube channel that you got to see. That's a joke, but I do have a YouTube channel. You could get on there. I try to emulate, do big things on there, but it's just me talking and stuff. So you can get on there and check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah. I got to say, my YouTube channel looks like a big spoof on everything. I'm trying my best. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do with my hands. All right. Let's see. Alex, what all you got going on there? Where should somebody go? Intense.
Yeah, Intense. Yep. If you look up Intense or Intense Off-Road on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm pretty quiet on Instagram lately. YouTube's probably where most of it's happening. I've got about an 8-part series. I don't know because I haven't finished editing them all yet. But we've got, my brother did a 1,000-kilometre ride on a mountain bike through the bush. So that was before all this lockdown stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So I sent him off with a camera and he went on a bike packing adventure for a month. And
That's
so
awesome.
running a series on that at the moment, keep everyone a little bit sane during all this lockdown. But yeah, look up Intense or Intense Off-Road. You'll find me on any of them.
And that's not intense like riding a mountain bike 1,000 miles through the middle of nowhere. That is like camping intense.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
One of my best
Intense.
memes out there, the best play on words. All right, Jason, where should somebody go to follow your adventures?
You took my thunder. I was going to say the exact same thing you just did. Alex always ends with it's intense, like camping intense, instead of intense, like hardcore. No, Alex has had some pretty fun adventures. Definitely check that out. I believe there's some scooter action out there too. So
Yeah,
stuff.
Expedition Scoot.
That sounds perfect.
It is. It's really good. So really talented cinematographer. You can find us at mountainstateoverland.com. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We do trips in West Virginia. And like I said, we have a good time and we focus on creating experience for people so that people want to do this for a long time and be part of this wonderful community. So yeah, I mean, that's it. It's awesome to be back here with you guys, and let's do it again.
Absolutely. And to close it out, I am Dan Cole, your moderator for the Overland Roundtable and host of the 4x4 podcast. And really, if you're going to check that out, just go to your favorite podcast client of your choice and just look up the 4x4 podcast, and it'll come right up there. And I think of these social networks, I'm probably most active on Instagram, so just head over there. I do monitor some of the others, but Instagram is the place. Well, thanks again, gentlemen. I really enjoyed our time here, and I do look forward to not just the next session, but the next time we can actually cross paths, like in real life, once we come out of this COVID-19 stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cheers.
Good night.